is Tea with Botha.
Welcome once more to this invigorating, stimulating session with Tea with Botha. As you know that we are in the month of August, which is celebrated in our country as a Women's Month, which happens on the 9th of August. This is a month where, as South Africans, we dedicate to women who took the might of apartheid hands-on. I mean, they marched, that's 1956, marched to the Union Building. So it is in particular marking this important milestone. And as Tea with Botha, we want to go back and review, reflect on their struggles. So it's going to be a month of focusing on the women's struggles, on the women's success and their winnings, trials, tribulations, but also, and more importantly, things that we should learn or take away from those women in 1956 who marched, against that obnoxious system called apartheid. And join me today, we are meeting one of those women who, in fact, is going to talk to us about what does it mean to get married to someone who is narcissistic or a narcissist. So I want you to help me welcome Lerato Dube to actually tell us more about who she is, where does she come from, where was she born, why has she written such a book, so that we are able to learn, we are able to in fact get deeper into who she is and the work that she does. Other than being an author, she's also an executive coach both in the private and in the public sector. What does that mean? What does that involve? Help me to welcome Lerato with Tea with Botha. Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you, Ndadi?
I'm well, thank you. And by the way, thanks for making time that we are here going to talk about who you are, about your book. Very interesting what you have written about. And I'm going to take a few minutes and just to listen and survive this moment and tell us, Lerato, who is Lerato?
Well, Lerato is a lover of life. She's a teacher and a student of life. She loves growth, and amongst all, she's a speaker. She loves to speak her mind. I hail from the beautiful Eastern Free State in a place called Qwaqwa. Putadichaba is its capital. It used to be a former homeland. Back in the days, that's where Basutos were placed in South Africa, where we engaged with one another and we traded even with one another, and we felt like we are one country within South Africa. And now, based on that, as I say that I'm a teacher, Qwaqwa is known as Sidibasatut, which is a well of knowledge. And because at the time it had a university, it had 5 teachers' colleges, it had primary schools and high schools, it prided itself in education and educating people. And I'm also a daughter of teachers. So you may say I'm born out of a staff room. Both my parents were teachers, their siblings were teachers, their cousins were teachers, their neighbors were teachers. So it was from that angle that I had this spark of wanting to learn and also wanting to teach. So I'm also a mother, because yes, I can go by many titles. I give myself permission for that. So I am a mother of 1. My son is 10. He calls himself Handsome Son.
Handsome.
Yes.
Interesting.
And certainly when he does look at the mirror and when we look at him, we do say that he's handsome. Yeah. So at some point he thought that's his name. Never. And I am divorced to a gentleman that had also crossed paths with me. And so, yeah, that's who I am. A sister to 2, Makhwabani and Mosele. Those are my younger sister. I'm the eldest. So when my parents first had a child, they had me. And in the house, they called each other Malerato and Tatalerato. So I like teasing my siblings to say, if I want to tell you that you don't come from this family, I can, because this is my mother, this is my father. And when we were growing up, that's how parents called one another, right?
Yeah.
With their first child's name. And that's who I am in short, in terms of where I come from. But also because I loved education. I was driven to make sure that I perform. And I grew up in those days when I knew that if you get a good education, you'll get a fantastic job, you get good pay, and you live happily ever after. And perhaps marry another person who's educated, and then all of you will be out of poverty. So yes, I did manage to go to school, finished my high school, and went to university and studied further. I focused more on physics as my junior degree, got an opportunity to go also study in Stellenbosch for postgraduate to learn about satellites and satellite technologies. And from that angle, I was able to also grow into furthering my studies more, getting bursaries and also getting scholarships to go study further. Came back home and worked in government as a junior technician, but also got an opportunity to grow into a policymaker until I got to senior level. And then, after about 2 decades of doing that work, the spark of being a teacher and coming out and teaching people about themselves, finding out who they are, why they are driven and why they never reach their goals, had become the reason that I decided to establish Lerato Inspires, which is a coaching company. Now that's how I come into executive coaching.
And what do you do? I mean, or what does it entail? I mean, executive coaching. What you do? I mean, if I want to say, look, I feel a sense that I need to be coached. Well, what would that entail?
A day in a life of an executive coach. Let's call it that.
Okay.
Right. The focus is to help my clients grow their potential, but also grow beyond the glass ceilings they have created themselves. When you get to work and you want to grow, there comes a level where you think, I've done it all. What is it that is beyond this?
Okay.
If I'm working with Ntate Botha, I'm probably waiting for Ntate Botha to go on retirement or to go meet their maker. And sometimes it takes longer if we find that we are in
like
the same...
The latter one, you mean dying. That's a better example.
Well, I did choose words carefully that it doesn't sound as bad.
Well, I hope you're not frightening me. That look, you're reminding me of my mortality. That look, you're going to die. It may not be soon, but anyway.
Yes, it is part of life after all. Yeah. Yes. And at that point, people become very frustrated. And what I had observed, having worked within people and being very focused on my personal development, was that most of what makes us not work together in organization, it's our interpersonal relationships. And therefore, that's what drove me to human behavior. So when I work with you as a coach, like a coach that can help you on a soccer pitch or rugby, it's about sharing techniques, identifying your strengths, working with your strengths, also identifying your weaknesses and then embracing them to pace yourself in growing in those areas. So as a coach, that's what I come in to help you with. So I'm more like your mirror. You tell me what you want to do, where you want to go, and therefore I look at your behavior, your habits, and the patterns that you've developed. My fascination is in understanding how the mind works. So I also empower my clients to understand how their mind works and what it is that makes them either succeed or find themselves not improving in what they want, even though they know they have potential. Look at the moment that we've got a lot of executives that are educated. Education in South Africa, at first it was very scarce, and then it became accessible, whether you could get a loan, a bursary, but it became accessible to everyone. So people had studied to the highest levels that they can, but it's not everybody whose career has grown at the rate in which they studied.
Okay.
And then the question is why? This is where you bring me in.
And have you been able to, are they, same pattern, or why would people not develop, why would they not grow in what they initially, that this is what I love, this is what, I've embraced this, I want to excel. Have you been able to, are there similar patterns?
Yes, there are patterns. Look, I would say, I'll give you an example with me. Growing up, I know that I had to make sure that I come home with a good report. My father was what we call strict. And being a strict parent, her and my mother having been teachers, they didn't leave much room for you to fail when it comes to academics. So for me to get out of trouble with my parents, I made sure that I aced my subjects. And those that I couldn't, I found a way of leveraging to see how I'm going to improve in the next term, right? And so that was a pattern that I grew up with. And that then became a belief that there is no way I can be anyone in the world without education. So now there are many beliefs that drive us. And if you don't know what drives you, you might find yourself at that T-junction and you don't know whether your belief is the one that is drawing you back. For example, my first job, I reported to a man who was the same age as my father. So when I found out that he was born in 1944 as my father was born, there were certain ways in which I started behaving. Although he was my colleague, I still saw him as a father, as a leader. Now, even if at the time, I didn't see him as a bully, but when he was treating me like his daughter, even if I didn't like the idea of being sent to go get tea, sent around to go drop a document, because when you're a professional, some of the things are not part of your job description. You would do them because you believe he's a father, he means well, he's an older person. And now as a person that grew up in Qwaqwa, one of the values is respecting older people. But now if you find other people with a different belief system, they then get to either use that to their advantage. Now, when they start to bully you, because of your belief system, you might actually even forget that there are labor laws that could protect you. You perhaps don't even know how to have boundaries. And now you start second guessing yourself because you can never be as old as they are, even if you could be more educated than they are. Now, those are the kind of things that become our beliefs that then hold us back, because now, how do you grow beyond your father? At that age, you actually think they know more. So you might find yourself sitting on a queue, waiting to be interviewed. And when you're sitting there, you start gauging those other people, especially when people start to have small chats while they're waiting and for them to go into their interview room. And then now you can check, I only have 2 years experience or 3 years experience, but these men, these women, they have 10 years, 15 years. Now you start second guessing yourself. You forgot that you qualified. You forgot that you called for an interview. But now this is what is holding you back. You're not going to take that leap. You get into the interview, already your self-esteem has been tainted because you have compared yourself with others. And therefore you believe that for you to be a manager, for example, or an executive, you need to have 20 years experience. Now that will hold you back, but it's only a belief. It's only part of your belief system. It's not the actual fact. The fact is you're qualified, and perhaps the organization is looking for young people. Perhaps that qualification you have, we all don't have it. Even those that are on the queue could learn a thing or two from you. So if you know who you are, you know what drives you, you know where you are going, then that should give you a level of confidence that when you get into that interview room, you block everyone out, you block everything out. But when you are not aware of that, it will hold you back. There are people who would say, I am not in a position to get this job because I'm a mother, because I'm from the Free State, because I'm short. Those things that you could judge yourself about without anyone saying they're actually a disadvantage for you. So those are the internal conversations we normally have with ourselves. Nobody knows about them. But because you believe it so much and you listen to yourself more than you listen to anyone, now that holds you back.
And you begin to internalize those.
Yes.
And how do you assist or help people to navigate that terrain?
Like I said, I come through as a mirror because sometimes you are not aware. You know, they always say knowledge is power. But once you have that knowledge, now you can say, I didn't know that because I come from a family of teachers, these are the values that they upheld. This is the reason why when I get into the office, I'm always clashing with anyone who doesn't want to go and further their studies. As a manager, I will always be at loggerheads with someone that doesn't want to improve themselves in one way or the other. When I look at their personal development plan, they didn't put anything that says, I will go for a short course, I will go for a longer certificate. It will bother me and I will think they're not interested at work. But then now, do you understand? I could be at loggerheads with someone that does not have a belief about education, as an example. So I come through as a mirror and then help you drive your journey such that you understand yourself and therefore you can understand other people and then become empathetic with them such that wherever you are at, you can be one of those great leaders that drives a win-win situation.
Interesting that you use the word empathy. We will come to it. I want us to talk more about, are you divorcing a narcissist? What do you mean? What's it? In fact, other than asking you what you mean, what were the genesis of you penning this book? Why this book? And other than why this book, why a narcissist? Yeah. And the title, if you like.
The title.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was, let's take it back. Now, I finished my school. I start working.
You come back from Stellenbosch?
Yes, I come back from Stellenbosch, got a scholarship to go to France, come back from France, and now I'm working in Grabo. And it's my first job. I'm excited.
Grabo is in the Western Cape.
In the Western Cape.
Yeah.
And now I am in my late 20s, approaching 30s. And everywhere I'm at, everyone is saying, it's getting late. You are educated. You've done it all. But where's the guy? Where are your parents' grandchildren? You buying a house, you buying a car. Is there a man that's going to approach you? And then, of course, now you start looking at, am I serious about this life thing? Because it seems as if the only thing that is left is getting married, right? And now in a search to get married, I did my best to avoid getting married to anyone who was as strict as my father. You see, as much as I loved my father, he is my first love, right? Because with every girl's first love is their father. But because I saw how strict he was and most of the time how he did not like negotiating and he loved it when it was his way or the highway.
Or no way.
Or no way, because there was no highways in Kwakwa, right? So it's his way or no way. But I didn't like that yes, I know as a child or as an African child is most of the time you are not given the platform to express yourself. But remember now.
And to negotiate things.
And to negotiate things. And remember now, I didn't know that there was a teacher in me. There was a speaker in me. So I always took offense when I never got an opportunity to speak, especially to speak my mind. Now, in this criteria that I wanted to choose who my partner is, I avoided anyone that was Sotho, Tswana, or Pedi. I am a Mosotho because I was in Free State where the Basotos were at. And now, because of how I saw my dad, my relatives, and everyone around me that allowed that, I would call it bullying for lack of a better word, but allowed.
So your dad was a bully?
Yeah, and my I found him. Yeah, I found him to be a bully. But because you don't express it, it's what fatherhood therefore becomes. It's what manhood becomes. It's what leadership becomes, and that's how we take it. But then I thought there must be different people. If I see it this way, it should be different elsewhere. And many people friends that I made later on that were not even Sotho, Tswana or Pedi, had their brothers who were the same as my dad. They didn't like their brothers and their cousins because when they described who their brothers are like, they were kind of like my brothers, right? They were like my cousins. They were like my dad. Now, in avoiding that, I eventually found someone who I thought listens to me, engages me, negotiates with me, partners with me. And therefore, we got married. And immediately after we got married, he then became exactly who my father was. Non-negotiable.
So were you not, during courtship, were you not able to pick up red flags, or were you not able to?
I think there was a lot of red flags. I would call them banners.
Or were you in denial?
Partly.
Or were you blinded by love?
Partly. But let me show you how it happens. You meet in the Botha.
Yeah.
He sits and studies you. I don't know if you've ever seen lions before they go capture their prey.
I have seen it.
Voila. Yeah. Now they sit down and they focus, but they study the pattern. And then now when they appear to you, they do exactly what you said you want, because that's a bait. Slowly but surely, they try to introduce that perhaps the way that you see life is not the same way. But because they had started off as understanding people, liberal people, embracive people, now when they start to change a little bit and those red flags are coming up, you're holding on to that first idea. You're holding on to the first date. You're holding on to the first 6 months, because that's what you're holding on to.
That honeymoon.
That honeymoon of a relationship, you're holding on to it. Now, when the red flags come through, do you see them? Yes. Do you believe them? No. Now, you are the person that will protect this person, even if they say, he is like this, he's like that, he's a bully, he's stubborn, he's this. And you're thinking, everybody's stubborn, but he's not stubborn to me. So maybe he was stubborn to you. You know, maybe he's your brother. That's why he was stubborn. He's older, he was stubborn. But when now you are married, and now they are no longer as flexible as when they were trying to lure you in, that you become a partner, right? Now that you've partnered up, the assumption is, you know what it is like to be married. You understand what it is like to be a man or to have a man. Now you know that this is how married women behave. Now, it may become a shock of my life that it had happened in that way, that at first, what I could do while we were dating, I can't do when we're married. So now my assumption going into the marriage was that what you see is what you get. Look, I was already in my mid-30s at the time. I was 35 when we decided to get married. So I did not think that I have to drastically change who I am and literally kill who I was for me to be a married person, to be a new person. Because then when I start to embody a person that I'm not, I may not be able to live with that woman. And certainly that's what happened. So yes, were the red flags. Yes, the character was there. From time to time, it will come up. But I held on to what I had been sold. And which is what then became contradictory once we are married. And so what birthed the book was when on my third year of staying together, because we had the customary marriage, even though between the two of us, we didn't recognize it as a marriage because it wasn't yet civil. But during those years, I had started seeing the certain behavior that is more like my dad's. And so when you have... For example, curfew. I'll give you a simple one.
Curfew. So, meaning, Lerato, curfew, you will be in this house, or there are no negotiations. You will be in this house before sunset.
Yes. And before sunset could be by 6 o'clock. So by 6 o'clock, wherever I'm at, I should be at home by 6 o'clock. So,
and no negotiations, nothing?
No. So unless if you're saying, but I have a meeting or I have a workshop or I have whatever, but then of course you would have known about it before today. Right? And not that when you get home after that workshop, it will be a beautiful day or it will be a beautiful evening. You will find somebody who's already sulking and not even certain if you were at a workshop. Even if you can invite them to whatever gala dinner at work, when they don't feel like coming, they won't attend it, but then they will still sulk.
Okay.
that you're home late. One of the things was...
So it was like your curfew?
Yeah, it was your curfew, now your dress code. I don't like that dress. So I've had that dress for 3 years. We just got married. It's 3 months into the marriage. Now you don't like this dress. I've been wearing this dress. I've been meeting you having worn this dress. You hadn't said there's anything wrong with this dress. And I guess I got to a point where I had actually packed almost everything he didn't like into a suitcase, wanting to give it away. And I noticed that that's my whole wardrobe. And do you have the finances for me to replace it, perhaps? And I would like to replace it at a go, unless if we take one item after the other while you replace them. But then later on, I was like, but I don't understand. What is the motivation behind that, right? Now also it's the way I do my nails. I just don't like your nails anymore. This manicure thing. Oh, this makeup. I like you natural. And yeah, all that, including also working on your self-esteem, how you present yourself. We visit you and Namhla, and in the driving back coming from lunch with you, to be like, so you were giggling so high. It must have been so fun. So you were so loud today. Like, if you are comfortable in your space, then it was a problem. And remember now, the teacher in me cannot not speak. Cannot not enjoy talking. Yeah. And that's who I am. Everywhere I'm at, I do say one thing or the other, unless if I'm digesting or learning, right? But majority of the time, even if I'm learning, I'm still checking with you if what I'm absorbing is true. And so even now, my style of cooking could be criticized. So if it was not what I shouldn't do, it was what I do that is so bad. Now, this started crushing my soul. I did my best to become that new woman that he wanted until I couldn't live with that woman, because now that woman had to live in me. And one day, going to church, talking to this other lady, because sometimes when you are in a jinx like that, you tell anybody who cares to listen what your challenges are, right? And at church, I remember during the tea session, I expressed to one of the elderly ladies to say, I don't know what I'm dealing with. Maybe it's a culture shock, but I had called my mom. I had explained to my mom what I'm facing. But because my dad, as much as I thought he was strict, he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia from the age of 19.
Your dad?
Yes, my dad. So he lived with schizophrenia. He was on medication. And some of his behaviors, we just brushed it off to schizophrenia. But now when I'm staying with a person that is behaving like my dad, so the first thing that I thought was, perhaps he's not diagnosed. And so my mom was like, no, but that's what most men are like. And so this woman in church said to me, go and research about narcissists and come back the next week and tell me what you have found, because the solutions you're looking for may not be there. And so after, and like a scientist, you go down a rabbit hole when you find a topic. And after researching about narcissists, what are their behaviors, how they show up, how cunning they can be in holding a character that is not theirs, and then they take the mask off when you're comfortable. So I figured that perhaps I was in that kind of prank life. And so that is what birthed the book, because most of the books that you read maybe from authors that had crossed paths with narcissists.
What is being narcissistic, or
being narcissistic, like I had said before, it is that level of bullying, if I put it in simpler terms. It is people who know how to change face. They are not bipolar, but they can be one thing outside in the public and another thing at home. I think what makes it difficult for us to accept is that this charming man or woman that I'm with at your wedding is a person I don't want to go home with, because once I go home, they become somebody different. So you and
this woman, are the signs clear that I may be in a relationship with this woman? She is narcissistic.
Yes. in a sense that when you are living with this person, and I'll give you a simple example, like the wedding that I said. So if you go into the wedding, one day we go into a wedding, I've got this beautiful new dress. And
has that happened?
Yes.
Okay.
And I show him on Friday that this is what I'll be wearing tomorrow when we go to the wedding. And he says to me, you go into the wedding with me dressed like that. But then he's got a poker face, right?
A poker face.
Yeah, poker face is he's not sad, he's not surprised, he's not disgusted, he's just blank. So you can't read the emotion. They hide their emotions very well. So to a point that we know them as people with no emotion. So it's more like they playing a game. Who's going to win? You know, and when we were young,
poker, like the one that the usual poker. That's what you meant.
Yes. And even when we were young, we had this game where we stared at each other and we'll check who blinks first, and others could go for long periods without blinking, and they would not show what it is in their face that they're feeling, even if they're feeling uncomfortable or they want to giggle, they wouldn't, right? And now, when a person says to you, you're going to the wedding dressed like that, now you don't know what that means. So you're like, what does it mean?
Oh, you ask?
Yes,
or you don't?
I do. Am I ugly? What's up with the dress? Does it not fit? I remember he just said, no, I'm just asking if you're going to the wedding with me dressed like that. And then dismisses it. And then he's like, oh, and I think it was his colleague that was getting married. And now he's like, oh, on Monday, everybody will be talking about me. Now you don't know whether everybody will be talking about them in a positive way or in a negative way. How is this dress not so beautiful? And I remember calling my sister, showing her a video to say, this is the dress that I'll be wearing tomorrow. And my sister Arabella says, oh, you dropped it. You dropped it, gorgeous. Worry not. Maybe he's just, a man being protective, not wanting people to look at you. Like, okay, cool. We go to the wedding. We get to the wedding. He's excited. He's introducing me to everyone. Everybody is happy to know me that didn't know me. And then there was a sermon that the preacher was preaching about.
At the wedding?
At the wedding. Now, in the sermon, the preacher says, when he was growing up, he was taught how to clean, how to cook, how to iron his clothes, how to wash his clothes, because his mother had said, should you marry a wife that doesn't know how to do these things, you should still do them because this wife is here to help you. So
it's not a domestic work.
Yes. So the parts that she can't do in helping, you still have to carry them because this is your family, right? And I thought that was a beautiful sermon, very empowering, right? And he thought it was a beautiful sermon. And then we got to the car and he says, like after the matrimonial, we're still going to the reception. And then he says, for as long as I've been married to you, I've never had you cook for me. This was after 2 years. And now my curiosity was, oh, interesting. So what have you been eating for 2 years? Because one of the rules was that he will eat my food every day. He doesn't want anybody to cook for him. So unless if we decide to go out. So for me, I thought, for the whole 2 years I've been cooking, what did you eat yesterday? Because I did cook yesterday. But that works on you so much if it is said to you all the time that you are excited about the sermon. Now somebody is crushing what the priest was saying or what the pastor was saying. And now they're comparing it to you, how the pastor said you must be a helper and what you do that makes you not become that helper. And now when we get to the reception, now we're holding hands. Now, that conversation in the car, it's as if it didn't happen. Now, do you understand why at first I thought it's schizophrenic? Because I would understand you seeing people around you and then not seeing them anymore. But if you understand that you are at that stage where you do have, a chemical imbalance that allows you to do that, then I do understand. But if you can be horrible in the car and then be happy outside the car, now,
so you go in, holding hands and
yes, opening the door, holding hands,
lovey-dovey. All is beautiful, rosy.
All is beautiful and rosy.
And you have been accused that the past year you have not been.
The past 2 years I haven't been cooking, right? And now these subtle things, they make you even second guess yourself whether did you listen? Are you seeing properly? Are you present? Are you absent? And now, because of these traits, you are now the person that is more confused. But remember, our society allows us to hide because before you get married as a girl, then there is, let's call it a pre-party or a bridal shower that you have where even older women come and give you advice about marriage.
That's not the Tawakhan, right? In our language, the Tawakhan would happen after marriage.
Yes, they happen after marriage.
Yeah,
but even before, where the women have private space with you. I think in the book, I illustrated through a couple that is there and where Agnes and Mac are getting married, and now Agnes and night before the wedding celebration, the village women come and tell her what marriage is like. And this is a platform where Osnamsha will come and say, you see Tate Botha? He looks handsome. But behind closed door, he's like this.
The monster.
Yes, and you must understand that's what marriage is. And then another...
There's nothing wrong.
No, we have normalized it that men are like that. So he can be as horrible as they are in the house. But once you get outside, you are groomed not to air your dirty laundry in public. So even when you
Would that be the same as when Lerato, that she is also, she may, I'm saying that it cuts both ways.
Yes, it cuts both ways.
Okay.
The reason why most of them have been identified to be men is because in our cultures, majority of the time, we give those rules to the women. I don't know whether it happens for the men, whether when they have a groom's party or anything, there's usually those advisors. How do you treat a wife? What do you do? But with us, it's how do you cook for him? How do you make sure that he's clean? How do you take care of the kids? How do you, take care of the in-laws? And now when you look at it from that angle, then you get to understand that you are empowered to withstand the challenges that come through, but he is empowered to live his life like he can because you will understand it as a woman. And I'm not saying there are no women narcissists, but I do understand that they are there, but most of those that they partner with have that empathy of wanting to protect them because that's what we do.
There is a woman out there who is listening to us, watching us. Are there things that you'd say to that woman, Nongaziwa, know that this behavior is, in fact, narcissistic?
Well, Botha, I can say yes. I could list the signs, but I would be careful not to do that and fight with the psychiatrists and psychologists because I am not a qualified one. But like a person who's interested in her life and her mental health, when you are in a situation that you feel is toxic, that is wanting to change the character of who you are, where you have to coexist with a person that you don't know inside your body, when you have to show up like a person that you don't know how that person is every day, just know that you are being abused. It is a mental manipulation. Whether it is happening at work, of which at work we do find a lot of those, but some of the signs will also be your physical health will be affected. When a person is making sure that you second guess yourself, they say things, and when you remind them what they said, they change and say, I never said that. Maybe you didn't hear me well. I guess that's one of the traits that you know that person is called gaslighting. They're gaslighting you. Now, when you find yourself in that, and in a relationship or even in partnership or as a colleague with a narcissist, you feel like a doll that has been shaken. But because you're a human being, after the shake, when a person puts you down, you are so dizzy you don't know whether you're going left, right, or forward or backwards. You wish you would fall, but because you're a mother, you're an employee, you're a daughter, you're a sister, you're an aunt, you might not be able to let it go and fall. Majority of us go for therapy and we get many diagnoses of what mental state we are at. Yet the people that we're living with do not go to therapy.
Did you go to therapy?
Oh, yes, I did. And then I suggested that the two of us go. We had one session. And in that one session, he wasn't as truthful to what the challenges are. And so when we were given homework to go and do, we never went back. Because then I was told that I'm idolizing the couple that was giving us therapy. And so when you go for therapy with a narcissist or a person with narcissistic traits that is not even aware of themselves, the only thing they want to do when they get into therapy is to manipulate you, say things that will appear to make you shameful, things that you will feel guilty about as a way of manipulating you. And once you know that when you get outside of that session, you may confront them, it might not be safe for you. You may hold it back like you normally do, and it perpetuates. So you may be going to therapy with this partner of yours for 6 months, and in 6 months, they're not telling the truth. Even to a point where the therapist could actually even empathize with them and find them as a victim. And then you could be ending up with a diagnosis.
So the tables would turn.
The tables would turn. And really, you would believe it because a professional is diagnosing you. I mean, one of my friends had been diagnosed with, it took him 2 years to get a diagnosis as a narcissist. And I'm happy that he did go for therapy until he got the diagnosis. And he's doing his best to re-engage with his children and find his feet again and get to understand what he's going through. But that's a small percentage because I'm talking about one person amongst all the people that I know that even volunteered to go to therapy. But yes, we do have a culture of men who don't want to go for therapy. And I'm not just saying men, some women actually don't want to go for therapy. They think they're okay. They grew up this way. They've been this way. So why change?
It's a normal thing.
It's a normal thing. Yeah. That's why I was saying to you earlier, we end up agreeing and accepting this behavior in our societies, within our community. And now we convert it to culture. And now, like I was saying to you, I would avoid Sotos and Tswanas and Pedis. And then I would get to the Zulus. They would behave the same way, the Sotos and the Tswanas and the Pedis, and then the Xhosas and everybody else. And then I'll be
so
thinking...
it takes some tribalistic...
Voila. But also, further on, we then make it a men thing, where we allow men to continue being children that never grow, that get to be served, that never help, that never even express themselves, that can throw tantrums at any platform, at any level. And it will be understandable that they are men. But as women, we are told how to succumb to this and then change our character to accept this. And therefore you end up even limiting who you are because you're trying to belong with everyone else. So what had birthed the book was for me to say, I was not aware that not having even boundaries to say, no, Mbuyiselo, this is wrong. You're not going to speak to me that way. And if you ever do that, I'm out the door. I should stop threatening to say I would leave. I should actually leave.
Was that a turning point?
That was the turning point, was realizing that my parents at the time had been married for 40 years. I was only going for my 3rd year.
In the marriage.
And if their status quo hadn't changed, and if many men and many women that I know that are in the same situation, others that were brave enough chose the exit. And I sat there and I asked myself, would I get a second chance? Because I'm almost 40. And for me, that was to say, if I knew then what I know now, I would do it differently. And so when I started becoming an executive coach and also understanding that some of those limiting factors are the low self-esteem that you may have now as the Lerato. And now here you are, you've got an opportunity for an executive position and you're not even applying because your significant other has told you how useless you are. And because you trust them because they're your significant other. Now you actually think that's how the whole world sees you. And now you end up not applying. If you do apply, you might mess it up in the interview. If you do get the position, you might actually eventually suck at your job. The higher you go, the more stressful it becomes, and you need a support structure. So the whole idea of the book was to help someone who's sitting there, seeing themselves in this tricky situation, if we may call it, and ask themselves, yes, I may not be a psychologist where I'm sitting here. I'm just someone's wife or someone's husband. But am I in an abusive relationship? Because yes, narcissistic relationships are abusive because they're mentally manipulating you. They give you brain fog. You start feeling inadequate. Now you're forgetful. And other people, unfortunately, they get chronic diseases.
Lerato?
Yeah, like your diabetes, high blood pressure. And because of the stress and even the depression that you are in, you are chances closer to a stroke. In the 3 years that I stayed with my ex-partner, every year, at least towards the end of the year, I was in ER with symptoms of stroke.
For those 3 years, every year?
Yes, every year, at least once. I would feel a bit dizzy. Half of my body would be numb. One of my colleagues will drive me to hospital. I'd go into those big machines until my medical aid savings has been depleted. They might find nothing until one doctor said to me, what level of stress are you at? Is it really work or is it closer to home? And that's when I had to go and research what that woman at church told me about narcissism. And I found that the spiral is bigger. Yes, we talk about it lightly, that your aunts may tell you, it's stay longer, be resistant. But nobody tells you what chronic illnesses they're dealing with. Nobody tells you how many pills they're popping. Nobody tells you when that anxiety attack comes, how they feel scared to leave their kids. Nobody tells you that. But if you've been through it, you then get to understand that the turning point for me was, can I teach others? But also at the time, my son was only 2 years old. And so I needed to be sane for him. I wanted longevity for him to know his mother, because if I stayed, I would have chosen death. Because it showed that I'm not as strong as the older women that could have been strong in the same situation. Clearly, it showed that I do take offense when somebody speaks down on me. I do take offense when somebody's not a partner. I do take offense if you make sure that you tear me apart to a point that I feel like my soul is crushed. So for me, this was my rebirth. This was my reincarnation, my resurrection. Because
you were reappropriating your power.
Yes. And this is where I say, for you to get your power back is to understand who you are, what drives you, because these are your values. I may have met this man that is equally educated. Our way of thinking, our values, our focus, where we wanted to go in life was different. My exposure and his exposure could have been the same, but the interpretation of the events and the life that we wanted to be was different.
Okay.
And so for me, it was to teach another person, because yes, I work a lot with women and some men who want to work on themselves, but it does get tiring to tell it to one person how to get out, how to be safe. Because one of the things is when this person comes home, it's like they take off their mask and they relax. Now at home, you know that face, you don't like it. The people outside, they know the person behind, they don't know the person behind the mask.
And they like
know
it.
the mask.
Yeah.
And they like it. I mean, you can interview any pastor's child whose father or mother in the house were different from what they were in the pulpit. We might like you as a pastor. We might like you as a leader. We might like you as my husband. And that's why sometimes I used to tell people that if we went to a wedding, it was as if all of us can stay there in that tent for the rest of our lives. Because if I had to go home with this person, he becomes a person that you guys didn't see. So when you start complaining or seeking advice, the people that know him don't know him the way that you know him. Now, once you identify those differences, maybe it's time for you to run. Because majority of the time, once they have taken the mask in the house, you know what it is like. They actually think you chose them because you can stand this person without the mask. Yeah. And this is where, for most women, it's dangerous if they must run. It's dangerous to threaten that I'm leaving, I'm going to leave you. The day that you decide to leave might be the day that it's very dangerous for you to leave.
Well, yeah. No, thanks, Lerato. Thank you so much. Where do we get the book? How do people access, the book?
The book,
yeah.
Yes. Access the book. I've got a website, leratoinspires.com. There'll be all the information that you need for you to buy the book. The book actually comes with a workbook for you to go through your own coaching, your own therapy in the meantime. And I did that for many women that know about narcissists. They clench on the information of who a narcissist is. And then they forget to work on themselves. They forget to grow themselves. They forget to leave the narcissist behind. So they get stuck in who the narcissist is, how flabbergasted they are about the narcissist.
The charming part.
Voila. And sometimes even the scary part. But because it's something that has scared you so much, you hold on to it, you want to read about it, all you talk about is a narcissist, and you forget that you actually need to go live your life and get out of that situation and go grow yourself, be healthy for your kids, and then teach different values to your children and teach them boundaries such that when people do them wrong, they can leave. When you are in a workplace that is not serving you what you want, you can leave and go find another one that allows your talent to bloom. When you are in a partnership or a marriage that doesn't allow you to grow and be the giant that you were meant to be, you should leave, because then that is not something that is allowing you to be human and to exist. And you might be choosing your death earlier. And so for me, it was just to help people get to the level where they say, at least I can be strong. I can hold space for my children. I can do my best not to perpetuate the pattern. Because once we allow it to be some of the traditional customs, whatever that we do, then it never ends, but it goes to the 4th generation and the 10th generation. And later on, we would be a generation full of chronic diseases and would be happy that my mother had diabetes, my father had whatever, and therefore this is what I have now. With the new diseases that we're seeing, with many women going into your cancers and the likes that have never happened in their generations, they don't know where to say it. Find a link with mental abuse. And after you do that research, come and tell me that it's not worth your mental health to be out of toxic environments.
Well, thank you so much, Lerato. I think, and I'm convinced that it was helpful, your insights, and I hope that you would continue to like us, you'd continue to subscribe, but also, and more importantly, you'd be able to engage in these conversations because they're important, they're a must. They may be uncomfortable, they may be out of the mainstream, but it's important for us to talk about what is it that when you are in a relationship that's toxic, when you are in a relationship that it probably could be you with someone who's narcissistic. Is there help out there? Are you able to get out alive, as Lerato was saying? And thank you for joining us. And I hope that you'll continue to like and to subscribe to our channel. Tea with Botha. Thank you, Lerato, once again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tea with Botha.